Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have the part 2 of the NF, NT, SJ, SP relationships panel. But before we get started, I'd like to give everyone a recap of what we'll be talking about today. And so today we'll be talking about temperament or essential motivators. And so this theory was created by Keirsey and it was expanded upon by Linda Beren. And so the SP types are called the improvisers and the artisans. And their core psychological need is to be free to act in the moment to make an impact. Whereas for the SJ types, Keirsey calls them the guardian and Linda calls them the stabilizer. And their desire is to stabilize the system, create a predictable standard, to belong, and to be responsible. For the NT types, Keirsey calls them the rationale, and Linda Beren calls them the theorist. And their core psychological need is to be an expert and to be competent. And then there's the NFs. They are called the Idealist by Keirsey, and Linda calls them the catalyst. Their desire is to make a difference, to have a long-lasting impact, and to be authentic. And so these temperaments create how we're like as a life partner. For the SP types, they make a really good playmate in the sense that they really know how to bring the fun into a relationship. And then there is the SJs. They are seen as the helpmate. They are reliable, dependable, responsible, and dutiful in a relationship, typically, general patterns. And then NTs, they are known as the mindmate in the relationship. So that's the role that they tend to play. And the idealist tends to enact the role of a soulmate, or, anyone can be a soulmate technically. And a soulmate is a term that's used a lot in culture nowadays too. Mm-hmm. But Keirsey associated the term soulmate with the NFs because they have a very special way of conceptualizing what is a soulmate. And so, Leon, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
So I have my channel is called Type Tips, talk about personality types. And I don't know what else to really say about me. I work as a mental health counselor. I really like my work.
Yeah. Leon has these fantastic articles on mental health. Mm-hmm. And yeah, his writing's very NF if you want to check that out.
You want to have a case study. It's not about the message you get from my writings, but whether you just to learn what an NF is.
Yes. It's like dissecting your brain, but through your articles.
Exactly. Oh, the horror. Yes.
Feel free to check out Type Tips. It's a wonderful channel, and Leon is an extremely good example of his type too. Mm-hmm. And he offers great tips as the channel suggests. And Wendy?
I am owner of Desert Sunrise Coaching. So I use personality types to help people get through their challenges. And I'll soon be a fitness coach also. And it just started because I was married to an INFP for 20 years and we had to learn about each other's types. And then I homeschooled my kids and I homeschooled an ESFP, an ESTP, and an INTJ. And so now I'm just taking everything that I did for 20 years and putting it into business form.
Very cool. Wendy has a really inspirational video on my channel recently, so feel free to check it out. I'll link it below. She has been through a lot and it's taught her many life lessons and it's made her a wise soul. So yeah. And for some reason, ESTJs are so into fitness. I don't know why. Trend. I don't know. Maybe you make a lot of money there. And so they're like, yeah, fitness trainers make money. The TE Doms are going there. I don't know. And so Kathleen.
Hi. So I'm retired, but what I did for a living was manage office buildings in New York. And, and I'm an ESFJ, but I'm really into fitness also. I run several times a week, 4 or 5 miles, do yoga, do that type of thing. So what I did and still do periodically is career coaching. And I use the Myers-Briggs and the strong interest inventory to help, it's the strong interest is about career types. And knowing both the Myers-Briggs and the strong is very helpful because people tend to the certain types of types that do well and enjoy certain types of professions. So at least a person can walk away and see, well, people that are on my type who do a job successfully and like it are, the same as I am. And so it's a start. So that's how I've been using it.
It's a pleasure to have you on, Kathleen.
Thank you.
And yeah, Kathleen is also on the board of the Association of Psychological Type. And I also have a video on the Strong Interest Inventory if anyone wants to check it out. I'm certified in the instrument. And fun fact, it's actually correlated with 16 personalities. So a lot of people see 16 personalities as being correlated with the Ocean test, the Big Five. And it's true to an extent, there is a correlation. But they also include the Strong Interest Inventory too. They ask questions like, do you like art museums? And that is a Strong Interest Inventory item for artistic. That's something that's been on my mind recently and people don't know about, so I thought I'd share. You just have
helpful because, like, for me, I got my degree in my 30s. I majored in accounting. When I did the work, I hated it. I loved debits equals credits, all that, but I didn't like being an accountant, and realized in retrospect that it was just not my personality. When I became involved in Myers-Briggs and I looked at accountants that like what they do and are typical, they were not my type.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was missing?
It helps to have that understanding, I think, when you're looking for careers.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's when the strong comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I was talking about fitness, I just wanted to clarify, anyone can be into fitness, like any single personality type. I just find it quite funny because I get a lot of coaching clients and a lot of them are ESTJs who are personal fitness trainers who ask me, Joyce, how can I make 3 billion by 30? And I'm like, all right, this is very stereotypical. I don't know what to do with this. But anyone can like fitness. I'm not excluding anyone, just noting interesting trends. And Jeff?
So I run a small business, a limousine company, and I have a contract with the VA. So we do a lot of medical appointment transportation. So I like doing that. I like running the show, the overall picture and so forth. I'm somewhat into fitness, but I'm lately too busy with my work. So I'm not really practicing that. And I just had a baby. I'm in my early 70s, believe it or not, and my first baby by surrogacy. So that's a new adventure. So I'm looking forward to hearing what happens at this panel.
Pleasure to have you on, Jeff.
Thanks.
And he's the president of the Sacramento Association of Psychological Type. And Spacey?
I get paid a modest wage to fix things that are broken around a factory. And I've been studying psychology and, particularly personality type for a long time now. So I have a YouTube channel where I have some videos about typology, but I mostly don't make them because I don't feel like I can really put together a decent video that has a lot of original content in it. But I do type a lot of people. I do enjoy doing that. So if you want some help figuring out what your personality type is, I will do that for you. I think it makes sense. Doesn't it make sense that an ESTJ would want to optimize their body? I feel like that's a pretty, it makes a lot of sense to me. But anyway.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on, Spacey. And he has a YouTube channel too that I'll link below. And Ron?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ron. Right now it's midnight for me. I'm in Germany and I'm currently working as a IT consultant with the Workday system. So it's a human capital management system for ERP systems. But I'm currently looking into switching to a different role. So I'm hoping to get in a trainer role because I think that will fulfill me a bit more than working in a service organization where you have to organize a lot of stuff, and organizing is maybe not the best way for an ISTP. Yeah, then I don't know what else to say about me. Yeah, the last 2 years, I did a lot of trainings. I did my NLP practitioner, my NLP coach. I right now also do the Beren's courses. Then I had a hypnosis training in July. I will start my NLP master. At the end of the year, I will do my NLP trainer. And then I made a decision. I finally get active and get this stuff into action and not just consume, not just learn, but also to get it started. So I will probably start a YouTube channel, likely in German, because I think the English market is quite full with lots of channels already. So let's see.
Yeah, me and Ron were from Linda Beren's class. And so, yeah, I dragged him on here. I was like, you have to come on or I'll assassinate your family. And he complied. I'm kidding. Thanks for coming on. And Jamila?
Yes, I'm Jamila. I sing and play a couple instruments, and I'm also a customer service representative for a car company. And I have a type page on Instagram and Twitter called Types in Black Ink that is specifically geared toward bringing type or making type relatable for the Black community. I haven't been on Instagram on the Instagram page a lot recently because I've been so busy, but it's still there. And I also have a singing channel on YouTube called Solely Mila. And I think that's it.
Yeah, Jamila has mad tunes and her singing's bomb. I'll have Types in Black Ink linked below and also her singing channel too. And so, hi, my name is Joyce, and I'm a certified MBTI master practitioner, and I facilitate the instrument in organizations. I also have typing services, and I coach people. And if you want to see part 1 of this panel series, I'll have it linked below. Since NFs took up a majority of the airtime in the last panel, we'll let the other types talk more this time, because, NFs love talking about relationships. And so I'm wondering what role you play in a relationship and what you look for in a partner. You can either be very general or specific, depending on what you're comfortable with, but feel free to share.
Well, I could jump in. I look for my partner to be like me, competent and good, efficient and so forth. And it's just what I do. Now I do understand that there are other types, and I try to, enjoy that part of people. But my present wife is also an NT. I had a long-time girlfriend who was an SP, and we had a lot of fun. Because she was so much fun. Living in the moment, doing stuff, always ready to go out at a drop of a hat. Let's go do something. But we would fight, like we'd have these incredible blow-ups, conflicts, and I could never figure out why. I mean, I know it was a different type, but I mean, the specifics, I couldn't understand how it got started. So anyway, it just seems to me that I've come back to somebody who is more like me, and I don't have to fight about it. There's a lot of similarity. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I talk about relationships.
So I had the exact opposite. So my partner actually passed away last year, but we had all 4 dichotomies were opposite. And I remember he was not familiar with the Myers-Briggs. And when we were dating for a couple months, I asked him to take it. And he goes, for what? And I had to tell him it wasn't a tool to eliminate people, and that my whole belief is that there is no right or wrong type. So he said, so he took it, but he did not want to know what his type was. He didn't like labels, but it was very helpful to me because it helped me to understand him and not take it personally. Like he was an introvert. He needed to process things. If he was upset, my thing is I want to talk about it now. So that was a big thing. And when I realized that, it just helped me to let go of it for now. And he came around when he came around. It wasn't a right or wrong thing. And I love that about type. I love being able to understand. And because there were many people in my life who, before I knew that about Myers-Briggs, who, you know, I might think it's, well, they crazy or they didn't really care for me, whatever I told myself. But so for me, it's been very interesting. Yeah. And helped me also understand myself as a manager. I had a lot of people working for me, and there were certain things that I did, being a total F, that, you know, it was hard having people report to me, things like that. Once I saw what my type was, I was able to kind of, okay, that's what you do, but you don't have to really listen to that. You're not their therapist. This is a kind of conversation I'd have with myself. So again, type helped a lot in that.
I was married, like I said in my video that I did before, to an INFP for 20 years. And I actually selected him when I was in 3rd grade and ended up marrying him. And I would say together, we did well in the sense of we raised 3 kids, we homeschooled, that was his idea, and we got through 20 years. But ultimately, I can tell you that ESTJs and INFPs in romantic relationships, for us in particular, it just didn't, there was always some kind of rub there, always some kind of underlining issue. He never felt like I was nice enough at times, and I never felt like, there were times I didn't think he was doing things very effectively. So we decided to amicably split after 20 years of marriage and go find more of a compatible, compassionate relationship. So I went out very, very intentionally to find people that were more of my puzzle pieces. And so now I'm engaged to an ISTP, and it's fantastic. It's not that it doesn't come with its own set of issues, but the cognitive functions work so well together. We're so similar in many ways, and then have enough differences. And I love SPs. Like I need an SP in my life to make me relax a bit, because I tend to be very type A. And so SP, whether it's ISFPs, ISTPs, ESFPs, ESTPs, it's fun to have them in my life, because I keep them a little straight, and then they help me to relax a bit. So, and then just having the 3 different kids, 2 SPs and an INTJ, taught me an awful lot about different relationships. So my INFP ex-husband and I are still the best of friends, but it really took 26 years of learning not to take everything personally. Like the 2 of us took everything personally when there were, almost felt like personal attacks in our marriage. So it ended up working out great. The ISTP and I had to learn to communicate, because there's a lot that goes on in the ISTP's mind that doesn't come out the mouth. Whereas for me, like all my thoughts come out. So we had to learn that, but we navigated that. And so I look forward to the next 20 years with him. So that's been my experience with relationships.
Can I ask you, how does your ISTP make you relaxed?
Well, you know, ISTPs seem to have the same understanding of life as ESTJs, which is a work hard, play hard type of attitude. So the one thing I struggled with my INFP is that I made him kind of nervous, because I was always running around. Like I get up around 3 a.m. and go to bed at 9 p.m. And so I'm out of bed doing my fitness stuff, and then I'm working all day. And the ISTP is able to take me and put me in the present moment instead of having me always stuck in my head with my huge long to-do list, because I always have things to do. So I have been able to, as much relaxing as I can, to learn that through him. Whereas my INFP, we really just had separate lives. My INFP, I recognized he needed his alone time. So does the ISTP, but it's a different kind of alone time. So he's been a really good balance for me. My ex-husband recognizes that too, because they're friends. Like my ex-husband is dating an ENFJ. And so the four of us go and do things together. Like we go drinking, we go hiking, we have parties, we do things together. So, but it's been quite the shift from introverted feeling as the first function to introverted thinking. And I love the introverted thinking. It really matches me well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the point, Wendy, about how you both would take things personally. And so I'm wondering if people feel attacked by our dominant functions sometimes when it's pointing out a blind spot in them. Like, for instance, pointing out if someone's inefficient or something. Like, to you, it's just pointing out common sense or something that you notice, but to someone else, it could be seen as you don't accept me for who I am. Or maybe it's true that we want people to be like our dominant function, like what Jeff was saying at the beginning, about how we kind of want people, like, if we're competent, for them to be competent too. And we'll kind of want to project our qualities onto them or want them to have certain qualities that we have too. Just like it's a human thing.
Right. Well, with me having TE as the first function and then the INFP having it as the fourth function, which one was going to win? It was going to be me. I do it naturally. I do extroverted thinking naturally. It's not that I'm always right. It's just that I do it very naturally, whereas he kind of stumbles upon it, if that makes sense. And then the flip, right? Introverted feeling and he had introverted feeling, top function, and then me fourth. We were trying to, whose values mattered more. So it was just a constant, like just rub all the time.
Makes sense. To clarify, as a disclaimer for this panel, anyone can be with anyone as long as they're healthy people, and especially if you have shared values and interests. But these are like the experiences of the panelists. So just letting you guys know that in case someone in the comments mentions anything. And so, yeah, feel free to ask each other questions too. If anything pops into mind and you hear someone say something interesting, feel free to follow up.
I would like to follow up on Wendy. You said something along the lines of you're putting them on their toes, or that they're still doing their best in a sense, right? So something along these lines you said. And I can really see where this is coming from. So when I would be in a relationship, right now I'm not. But if I would be, I would have a reason to do even more than I'm currently doing, because I would find a reason to do it for somebody and not just for myself. So I would come off a lot stronger. Maybe my care would be a lot stronger. And then I know, okay, I'm in a partnership. If it's a romantic partnership, then yeah, if I would be in this partnership, I know, okay, I want to let the other person feel good in that partnership. So I will, just do more than I would usually do. So that's really, what would be, at least for me, a really high motivator in that perspective. And in this perspective, you put me on my toes, or you just, how I see it a little as the ESTJ, at least the female ESTJ. I don't know if it's the case for you, but for me it would feel like, okay, hey, there's a fangirl or a fan partner from me who's giving me all the cheers, and so I have to give my best.
Well, I can say for my ISTP, I just value him. Like, I admire his skills. He can do things very well, and he can think through things extremely well. So what was happening in my marriage is that my ex-husband and I just have hashed this out forever and ever, but like everything went through his emotions, right? It was his values. And it was hard to make them budge. I couldn't sometimes bring enough evidence to make it budge. Whereas the ISTP, because it's logic, we can work through the thoughts. Like, it's nice to say something and then have him, you can just see the computer working in his brain and then the thought come out. And I admire that. It's easier for me to work through that. Now, like I said, the flip side is, because I did 26 years basically in the trenches, right? We raised 3 kids. We went through a lot of different things. We grew up together. I value INFPs. I'm beginning a podcast in a few weeks, and I have chosen an INFP to do the podcast with me because I know that we can work well together in that sense. But like in my household growing up, not my house, but my marriage, my INFP and I, we could only work together if we were working on separate projects. So if we were working in the house, for example, like I would paint one room and he would paint the other room, because working next to each other wasn't happening. Whereas with my ISTP, we can work in the same room. We don't even have to speak. We just go and move along doing the same thing. So it's just interesting to see the different cognitive functions and how they play out in everyday life. And I've had that experience in some form or fashion with many of the STPs I've ever been around. So
I feel like that's a really good marker for relationship health. You know how much conflict there is in a relationship, or how much you guys butt heads and fight, depending on how much you can work on the same project together without biting each other's heads off. With certain people, you know that it's very easy to create conflict because every single thing you do together, you'll end up bickering over something together. And so I think that rule is a really good general rule just to apply to like all relationships as a way, like a litmus test for people to see, oh, like how much conflict is there really in a relationship? I know it's simple, but it makes sense. Anyone else want to share? Jamila, I'm not picking on you, but I'm kind of like, like, I know it's a big group, so I just try to like single self.
You said, what do we look for in a partner in a relationship, right?
Or what role do you play in a relationship too?
What role do I play? I play the role of not taking life too seriously, in the sense of I'm always like pranking my husband. Also, like, let's say we go out to like an event or something, I play the role of I'm ready to go. And he plays the role of, my husband's an ENFJ. He plays the role of, hold on.
That's a cliffhanger.
I'm so sorry. See, this is a good example, right? This whole time, right, I wasn't talking. He had went to get Chick-fil-A. And so I'm like texting him like, oh, bring it in here so, I can eat while y'all are talking. And I'm texting him like, hello. And now he decides to bring it to me. So I also play the role of being practical and like seeing things that are happening in the real world. Like, oh, this needs to get done, or like, I don't know how to explain it. Just like more practical things. Whereas he is more of a like conceptual type of person of, like, let's just like sit and talk about, the mysteries of the universe. I'm like, that's fine, but also, we need to make this doctor's appointment and we need to do all these other things as well. So I play that role. I don't know if I finished what I was saying earlier because you said I left on a cliffhanger, but yeah, if like we go out or something, you know, we're always the last ones to leave because he wants to talk to everybody. And I'm like, I would have been fine leaving 2 hours ago, but you want to say goodbye to this person, and then you want to make sure this person, you know, doesn't feel left out or something. And so those are just some of the roles that I play / he plays. A lot of times I'll like call him out when I feel like he's not being honest with himself. I tell him this probably almost like every day. He'll be talking, and I'm like, Denzel, I don't think that's true. And he'll be like, no. I'm like, no, I just want you to be honest with yourself, because what you're saying can't be true or like consistent with like who you are, because you said this yesterday, you did this last week, you did this today, and da-da-da-da-da. So I play that role also of like, okay, of helping him to make sure that the things that he says and does are actually true and consistent to who he is. And then I guess I'll say lastly, the role that I play is helping him to sift through or like think critically about the people that he has in his life. Like, okay, this person, you know, they just randomly ghost you, or they do this, or, you know, their actions don't line up with like what they might tell you. Like, are you sure that you want this person to be a big, you know, part of your life? Because like you're constantly being hurt or, in my opinion, abused in some senses, or, you know, fill in the blank. So I think that I play that role for him as well, as understanding, helping him to kind of understand his worth, so to speak, because he'll just make friends. And I'm like, okay, but like you're stressed out. So yeah, I think those are like all the first things that come to my mind.
How do you prank your husband?
I mean, prank isn't really the right word, but more so like I'll just like try to put my feet on his face, or like I'm trying to always like physically fight him just because I want to. Or like I'll go, like if he's going to the bathroom, it makes him uncomfortable if I'm there, if he's like trying to do his business, but I'll just go in there and like stare at him, or, you know, stare at him peeing. Like I just like to do things that make him uncomfortable, because it's not hard to make him uncomfortable. What else do I do? Like if he's trying to get into a room or something, then I'll intentionally like run in the room, close it and lock it, and like stuff like that. Just, you know, I just like annoying him, really.
That sounds like the life.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, what SPs do to generate some fun. Yeah, and we haven't gone over everyone else's role in a relationship, so I was wondering, like, what role do you play as a partner? What do you offer to relationships?
Okay, are we specifically talking about romantic relationships? Because it seems that way so far.
Yeah, we can talk about romantic relationships for this panel, but I think it also extends to friendships too. The things you kind of bring to romance can also be friend things.
Yeah. I don't know. I try to generally say the right thing at the same time, the right thing at the right time, rather. I try not to talk too much. I don't really feel like talking too much, you know. If I feel like I have something important to say, then I'll say it. I try to make sure things are generally like effective, that things are working well. I guess I mostly try to pay attention to practical matters in my relationships with other people, which is kind of interesting, I guess, because I don't really in my own life with myself. But I find myself frequently, I think, paying attention to extroverted thinking matters with a lot of the people that I hang out with, because it's like for example, I used to spend a lot of time with people who are, quite frankly, like drug addicts and probably like really, absent-minded people who, so I took care of the TE shit. Like I was the person who showed up to festivals with like garbage bags and paper towels and baby wipes and, water bottles and, basic shit that you're gonna need, when you're camping and taking a bunch of drugs and stuff. But I also find that like in my current relationship with an INFP, like with them being TE seeking, I'm naturally going to pay a lot more attention to TE stuff than I normally would have to alone or with other kinds of people. It's a little bit stressful for me, but I can, if I know that I have to watch out for it, then like I can do it pretty easily. I can take care of it, especially I guess with the line of work that I'm in. I've kind of built up my TE and maybe my SE a little bit. So, I can take care of, or at least keep track of a lot of practical stuff, although sometimes it can be hard for me to take care of all of it. So, let's see. I guess I do find that I gravitate toward people that I can have a lot of spiritual or metaphysical or psychological kind of talk with. So, I like being with an INFP, for example. Like we have kind of a lot of the same struggles growing up in life, and we can talk about a lot of the same topics. We have our differences, but I guess I just want to be with somebody, I guess, who can understand what it's like to be kind of disconnected from the world around you and like kind of a little bit confused about like what you're doing here and what you should or should not be doing.
Yeah, you have someone to have conversations about, why are we alive? What does this mean? Or is this real? Is this reality? Just like any kind of topic that you can't answer truly for sure, like things that you can speculate about.
Yeah, and I guess that's also why I like INFPs. I mean, apart from them being really cute, of course, they're, you'll never really completely understand them, which is something that I think as an INTP, I'm drawn to things like that, where it's like you can try to figure it out for 100,000 years, but you'll never completely get it figured out because it just doesn't bend to your human conception of reality. I don't know.
In relationships, up until the last one here, I bring order. That's it, order. I do not like chaos. My INFP and he always appreciated that he worked his job and I ran the household and I homeschooled the kids and I took care of all that. He would just get done his job and he would come home and he had nothing. He didn't have to do anything but just be doing whatever he wanted. And so it was just order. I do that in a classroom too. When I step into sometimes I step into a classroom as substitute teaching and things like that. And I just bring a sense of order, and I do it with my kids. Like I said, I homeschooled them for 10 years and I ran their 3 different grades all year round. That's what I appreciate. In my current relationship, he brings as much order as I do. So it's very nice. It's easy. So that works. But generally in relationships, my role is order. I bring order.
I'm in a new relationship. It's very new. So I don't know what his psychological type is, but as I'm listening, and I would say his F is probably really strong because of the conversations we have, which was totally unlike the partner I had that died. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking, wow, that's because we talk about how we're on the same page in that way. And I just, for some reason, didn't associate it what his psychological type is yet. I don't think he knows, but yeah, it's very nice to have that. And I'm also I've also brought organization to relationships, structure, and he's bringing the same thing. So that's very new for me too, to have that same thing. Whereas in any relationships I've been in the past, including family, I've always been the one to make it happen, make the arrangements, whatever. And it's almost like I can't stop myself. So it's nice not to be the only one doing that.
Do you like to get people together, Kathleen?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I like being with groups. I get a lot of energy from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of gatherings do you tend to like to set up? Like what kind of group gatherings are?
Well, I mean, I play golf with groups. That's kind of set up for us, but just groups. I mentioned my partner died. Well, I'm in this group of people whose partner died a year or so ago, and we've been incredibly supportive of each other. Arrange lunches and arrange coffee. I definitely am trying to arrange a trip with my family. I'm from New York, and they're in New York, and I'm in Washington, and I'm trying to make it happen, and I feel a resistance from them. Like they don't want to plan. So I last month I was trying to structure a few things because I had to make these airline, and they go, "It's only May. You're talking about November. Just wait until It's like it's really hard for me to do. I get it, but
That reminds me, Kathleen, of a guy I know, and I don't know his type, but his girlfriend, he would tell me, he was clearly an extrovert and she was an introvert. And he used to tell me that this was in the Sierra Club hiking events and stuff, that if he wanted to do something a few months or later, he would tell her about it and then just be quiet because she had to get comfortable with the idea and process it and so forth. So he had learned a way to get her to do stuff with him by just mentioning it and then not pushing it because she needed to have that space to get comfortable with the whole idea. And it would usually work. It was pretty good.
yeah, thank you. That's a good idea.
I think my role probably has changed over time due to different kind of circumstances. So I think if we're starting off in the earlier part of my life, that what drew people to me or how I drew other people in is that I tend to be a pretty good listener, for one. I tend to go along with what other people are doing. These are actually maybe have more to do with 9-ish kind of traits, right? But I think a lot of things have changed over time. So I had like a ESFP girlfriend, and back then I was actually very much into fun because I had a bit of a 7 vibe too. So like going out and having fun was no problem, and that's something that we enjoyed, right? But it's also like it kind of was like a period of my life. So I think things changed like when I really moved to New York City, because it's like people say like I have like a California personality, right? But since I moved to New York City, like it really forced me to be something different. It's like very antithesis to how I operate. So in terms of on like all the dimensions, so I became a lot more structured and organized and initiatory, like especially when like talking to people, because you kind of have to be like in the city. So that changed a lot. I remember like my ESFP ex was upset with me because I didn't do like any of the planning. So she had like an expressed expert thinking. So there's a lot of like planning, like, and she came up with ideas of what to do for the weekend. And on Friday, I was still like deciding whether to go or not, which, but, I learned from that experience. I know that it's good to follow through with plans. And now it's like the other way. I tend to be someone who makes plans and then kind of get frustrated when people don't follow through. So it could be like a projection of extra thinking or whatever, but I actually became good at making plans. I've chilled out since then. So, but my role has changed. It's also because I've also I work as a psychotherapist now. So before, I'll just play the listener to people, but after work, I don't want to be that. So yeah, things just flip around.
My ex-husband always called himself a chameleon, Leon. Like he said he could just mold into any situation. He actually has been in sales for years. It's not his favorite thing, but he is very good with people. We always joke that he was the only family member that was like absolutely loved. Like everyone else, someone hated them. Like someone in the family didn't like them. But my INFP ex-husband, everyone loved him. But he's going to be 44 this year, and he's doing the same thing as you. And now that I'm not in the household anymore because we divorced, he has to do everything that I did. And so sometimes he'll just call me up and be like, I don't know how you did it all these years. But so now he's doing more of those taking on that TE role. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, since I've known this man since I was 8 years old, it's super fascinating to watch him do all this stuff because it's been quite the growth for him. Like he's learning a lot. But yeah, just with you talking about, and he does listen a lot, but he has always called himself a chameleon. Always.
I resonate with that. I'm very much a chameleon. I still am, actually. And I still spend a good amount of time listening to people. Mm-hmm. And I'm also loved. Loved by everybody. So.
You're very humble.
I don't know if it's a 9 thing or what, but I mean, I actually can relate to Leon. I guess as far as playing psychiatrist with some of the people that I've been friends with, I guess. Like being a person where they would start just venting to me about some stuff that they like would normally never talk about, and I would just be like, yeah, whatever, just say whatever seemed rational to me at the time, and I guess it helps people. I don't really judge exactly, I just try to, okay, if you're gonna sit here and give me all this stuff, then I'm gonna try to figure it out like a puzzle and spit out whatever it is that you put. Maybe you want to hear it, maybe you don't. And if you don't want to hear it, maybe you'll come back to me 3 months later and be like, man, I really didn't want to hear it, but I needed to hear it. But as far as order goes, I'm not a really orderly person. I think when the rubber meets the road for me is it's like, if I go in the bathroom and there's like a bunch of random like makeup and like shit in the sink, it's like, why is this in the sink? The sink is for water. That's where for me as like a TI user, it's like stuff just needs to make sense. Like it doesn't need to be organized, but it needs to make sense and it needs to not be like filthy and dirty. And that's basically where I draw the line, I guess.
I just want to say I'm only laughing because I totally get your line of thinking, because I have been absolutely fascinated to be around an introverted thinker all the time because it absolutely does have to make sense. And I get your point that makeup being all over the place when the sink is for water, it resonated with me. But I will say too, my ex-husband, the INFP, is also a 9. So I don't know if that's just common. I'm a 1. So anyway, that just resonated with me too. So
the chameleon quality is a known Enneagram 9 trait too. It's like to not rock the boat, to create a sense of belonging. They tend to numb out themselves.
I want to hash that out a little bit because I've always been kind of a chameleon myself, but I am a 9. But I feel like at the same time, I guess if they're 9s, they wouldn't be that way, but I have definitely, I guess, for clarifying purposes, seen some FI dominant people, for example, that really don't care all that much as far as blending in with everyone around them and maintaining harmony and not rocking the boat or anything like that. Some of them really couldn't care less. It depends on the individual.
I'm not, listening is a challenge for me, definitely. But I also definitely could identify with the chameleon. It's only now that I'm starting to, and my instinct is to go along with it, to make people happy, keep the peace. But now I start to think, okay, is this what you really want? I have to make that extra step of checking in with myself. And I think some of this stuff you modify as you get older too. I used to, when I was younger, I couldn't stand being home at night by myself. I wanted to be out, whatever. I lived in New York City. It was like a million things lined up. Now I still would prefer to be out, but I also can enjoy time by myself. So it's a little mellowed.
Yeah, we do balance out over time. And so I'm getting that chameleonizing is a 9 thing, but it's also, I think a lot of human beings have it too because of upbringing or something causes it because we're trained or conditioned to numb ourselves out, or that your needs or who you are is not something important. And so we tend to mold to that unless we have a very strong personality.
I would say that I used to care about blending in with society as an ESTJ. Like, I didn't want to go outside of what was considered the norm. But then I married an INFP that was actually complete. So he was a chameleon in the sense of social situations. He didn't want to rock boats. But on a personal sense, he was totally willing to go outside. Like, the day he brought home the idea of homeschooling, I told him to get a new wife because I was like not going to go outside of the realm of my kids going to school and doing all those things. And it did take him 2 years to convince me to homeschool the children. But ultimately, he did live outside of that norm. But me, I'm finding as I'm getting older that I'm totally fine getting outside of what's considered, whatever normal even means. What does it mean?
Yeah, there is no such thing as normal. Well, there is people who are more common, like behaviors that are more common than others, but normal, it's kind of a conception made by society too. And so you can create your own new normal, and then you'll be the starter of fads. And so you'll start a new normal because it'll catch on, and then you'll get angry at everyone taking on your trend.
Yeah, I could, with what Wendy said about her husband, I could really identify what he, ex-husband, I really identify what he's been doing because that's basically how I operate. It's, I'm still like very much F5, so everything's about like how I personally feel about things, right? So on the outside, I could kind of have almost like maybe it's like almost like a social front in a way, just so that people could leave me alone. So I just kind of go along with everything, but then I go back and I do my own thing, and I do live pretty differently from other people, but I keep it quiet because I just don't want people to bother me about it. If I confront people, then people are gonna like start talking about it, and that'll stress out my 9-ishness or my introvert sensing.
And your need of privacy.
Right. Yeah.
And so, Ron, I believe you haven't talked much about yourself.
Okay, so the question was, what is my role, right? I mean, what I hear over and over again, that I'm bringing quite a calm energy to some kind of relationship. If it's just, I don't know, also just taking a walk outside, my energy is usually quite calm, relaxed, even a little chill at times. So it's a really serene energy and a light energy, and also a light humor in that sense. So if someone wants to feel relaxed, then probably ISTP is probably one of the best person to go to. Also with their FE inferior, they want to make you feel good in a sense. And with SE parent in combination, they also check, okay, how's your experience? Do you like it? Do you not like it? And then I will adjust my behavior as long as it doesn't, let's call it, as long as it doesn't kill my own identity in that sense. So my TI is still quite strong as an identity level. But if it's about, making me feel good or just being calm, that's probably the ISTP way. And also,
What I noticed, I mean, could be another ISTP is a bit different, but I feel that ISTPs are quite optimistic, and they have also something you could call hope in a sense, because they have their NI child, which is quite optimistic on the future in that sense, on what they want. Yeah, so that would probably be the main part if it's about a role in a relationship. If it's about values, at least what I noticed about me is that the value of harmony is also quite high for me. I'm not sure if there's anything about Enneagram 9 or something like this. I don't know my Enneagram type. I mean, I'm more or less 1, 5, or 9, at least from the descriptions I read. I didn't go too deep into that. Yeah, but always harmony is coming up again. I did a lot of NLP exercises where you have a lot of imagination in there, and there really harmony is coming up. I have inner images. For example, there's a big tree, and then within the tree is some kind of a river or some kind of flow going through the tree. And this kind of flow is also, I think this perfectly reflects this calming energy an ISTP can bring about. Yeah, but they are not always calm. I mean, if they're something interested in or want to get work done, then they can be, as mentioned before, quite work hard, play hard in that kind of sense. So this, the description Wendy had before, this would perfectly fit me. Only if I want something. If it's something where it's just work for me, especially busy work, I might still do it, but it's not really work hard in that sense. I'm still working on a good level, but not on the level I usually would like to work at. So there's still a difference on that perspective.
I like it. I like what you said. It's very true. You guys can be ISTPs very, very laid back and chill. The one thing I really enjoyed I really enjoy now is that we have ideas and we get them done. Like they come to fruition. My INFP and we talked a lot and we did things a lot, but there was a lot of ideas and we could only drive a couple of them home. The ISTP and I are more realistic about what we can get accomplished and not get accomplished. And so more things get driven home. But you are a very calming presence, though I wouldn't want to make you're a very calming presence. And I find that if your life is run pretty orderly, you guys it's even better with that. So if you don't have a lot hitting you at one time, especially that like extroverted feeling type of items that come into people's lives all the time. So what you're saying, like how you are in a relationship, that's how I feel too with what I'm seeing. It's similar.
The stream of water is a good way of putting it, Ron. I find the chillest types are ISTP and ISFP. For whatever reason, you feel like you're around a human chill pill around them. I think it's partially because of the extroverted sensing being in that role. Like extroverted sensing has a very chill, go with the flow, whatever happens, happens in the moment. And it's like this serene, everyth's going to be okay kind of energy. It doesn't feel overly stressed or worried or tense, but it feels like, yeah, when we'll cross that bridge when we get there energy.
I always hear we'll figure it out. All the SPs in my life say we'll figure it out. My SP kids, my SP fiance, just figure it out. And to an ESTJ, I'm like, can we figure it out right now? Like right this minute. Can we get the plan in place right now? No. And you know what? It usually does work out. I mean, sometimes it's by the seat of their pants, but it tends to work out. So.
Well, I I'm just going to speak for myself here, but I guess I'm not. I feel like somewhere deep inside at like my center of centers, I'm actually extremely a chill person. But just all of the stresses of life just keep poking and prodding at me until it just gets inflamed, and I end up being an actual anxious mess, like just beneath the surface, if you can pick up on it. So I'm probably not really that chill of a person to be around, depending on what kind of a person you are. But I don't know about Leon's experience, but as an INTP, like I'm like freaking out all the time because I'm barely surviving in this life as like an adult human being. So
I resonate with the barely surviving part.
yeah,
we're still here. You made it so far.
Yeah. I mean, we'll make it. We'll make it. We'll feel like we're dying, but we won't be.
Yes. I lived with an INTP housemate before, roommate. It wasn't a good situation in regards to the survival aspect, but we had a lot of ideas, which, they weren't really executed, but it was fun to have ideas. But I feel like maybe on the outside I could appear kind of calm, but inside I'm more like tightly wound up, where like the neurosis is within, but it's hidden. You have to look for like more subtle signs from the outside, but it's there.
And you'll have some ISFPs describing that too. Like there's some ISFPs who are extremely chill on the outside, and everyone will tell them, "You're the chillest person I know." And then the ISFP's like, "I'm a worried mess inside, but I appear so chill." And I'm like, how does that happen? Like their exterior is just so, it seems unfazable. Calmer than a waterfall on a clear skies day. And then inside they're actually neurotic and you just don't know. And I'm like, wow. FI, sometimes the emotion shown outside is very incongruent with the emotion internally felt. And so, Jeff, you haven't spoken in a while, so I'm just going to poke at you.
Well, I'm hearing everybody being true to themselves and talking about that. But the thing I wonder about is, the thing I'm curious to find out is, do relationships not work when you're very different? Eliza, can you expect that after 20 years you're going to get a divorce because you really don't mesh very well? I mean, is that what you should tell everybody who's a very different type when they get together? Or is it that sometimes people are lucky and they figure out how to cope or compromise early on? That's what I wonder about. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I guess there's no cut or dry rule to that. I think that it's a case-by-case thing. But I guess it depends on what you're different about. Are you different about deal breaker things? There's stuff outside of type 2 that cause like a you should get out of that relationship type of situation, or you should consider that. And it's like if you want 10 kids and your partner wants no kids ever, it can be irreconcilable. Unless one of you changes your viewpoint, then it's workable. There are so many other factors that go into compatibility. If you look up John Gottman, he has studied marriages, and he can predict with a 96% accuracy rate whether a couple will stay together in the long run based off of 10 minutes of footage, I believe. And it's if you show contempt or the other four horsemen in a certain type of frequency, you can actually predict relationships failing with an extreme dead point on accuracy. And so anyone want to chime in with their thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment about the 20-year thing, right? So we got divorced at 20 years. But I will just say that for my ex-husband and I, after 20 years or 26 years, we knew how to do the relationship. But what we just knew something was missing. And we weren't living a full life. So our friends thought we were crazy. Our family thought we were crazy. But the bottom line is, and I say this to everybody, you live one time. And both of us were it just wasn't 100%. So we had gotten together when we were 17 years old. And then life hit us. It completely hit us. We graduated college together. I found out the day after, the week after I graduated, I was pregnant. And the first baby was born the day after our first wedding anniversary. So it was like this constant life. And so we did life. We did life for 20 years. We figured it out. We were like successful in that sense. And we're still best friends today. But we just looked at each other and said, it's just time to get a full life. Like, we did this for 20 years. We're going to still be in the trenches for each other. But it's time to go grab what we both needed. Like, we knew that once the kids grew up, we would just live separate lives anyway, because I would have gone off to do my thing and he would have done his thing. So we just decided, like, since we'll probably do this when we're 50, we might as well do this when we're 42 and see what can happen. And honestly, like I said, the two of us went, and was the key. We were stagnant together. Like, we weren't helping we weren't doing great things together, because we were always trying to keep that relationship like together. And that took up all our energy. So then when we split amicably and got with people that like made us both feel alive, now we're doing all kinds of different things with our life that we weren't doing for 20 years together. Like, he is doing great things and I'm trying to do great things. And now we can come together and talk about it. So I think life just changes. And both of us kind of lived in this, we did what we were supposed to do for 20 years. We did what we were supposed to do. And then when we hit our 40s, I wouldn't say they were a midlife crisis, but we just said, oh my gosh, like, when you're 20, you don't think about 40. When you're 40, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like, am I halfway towards dying? I mean, you start looking at your future and you realize, so I went to 80 and worked backwards. And now I'm like, okay, I just want to get like a little better slice of life. So we did it. Like, we both went out and did it. So.
Okay, question. So what if what you've done is you've gotten somebody who's much more compatible now, and you're having a great time because it's so much better in comparison. But maybe in another 20 years, is it going to happen? You're going to say, wait a minute, this person still isn't quite right, because you've gotten used to everything. You've worked it all out, and you want somebody even more perfect, which would be exactly your type.
Well, so actually I have an answer for that, because my ex-husband and I have discussed it, like, kind of in a joking manner, but my plan is his partner is older than him and my partner's older than me. So we both say, like, hey, we're going to do this great thing for like 20 years and have all this fun. And then when we're like 80, if we're still kicking it and our partners have passed on, we're just going to get back together and take care of each other, because we trust each other, right? So I know it sounds weird, but I don't plan on in 20 years, like, going to find someone different. Like, that's not a plan of mine. Like, I don't think I can do better than I've already done right now. So I'm just going to keep what I have now. And then later on, the decades from now, the INFP and I, if we're both single, when we're like 80 years old and still alive, we'll just combine forces and take care of each other until the end. And that's it. So.
I like Jeff's very introvert intuition question about the future.
Boy, that's a plan. Yes.
I always run on plans, always.
Me too. It's so, yeah, wow.
Did everyone get a chance to answer the role question? What role they play in a relationship?
I think so.
Cool. Yeah. Well, maybe I can also chime in as well. What I contribute to relationships, of course, this doesn't apply for all INFJs, is the ability to offer piercing insight into a situation. So if someone is able to relay their heart to me, I'm able to provide them the essence of what they're talking about and maybe relay it back to them in a way that might make them understand the situation in a new context. And so I give them perspective on the situation. When I get together with NFs, we're like the therapist. So we're typically people who listen to other people's problems, but then when we're together, we're just the therapist to the therapist. I don't know. This and I find that I also am a chameleon, like what everyone else was stating. And it's refreshing to be around people who you don't have to be a chameleon for. And so being able to talk about esoteric topics, the asmorphic, the unknowable, the unseeable. Conversations are my meat and butter. So having a good conversation with someone that is exploring something about the world metaphysically or some sort of topic that is very stimulating because it's a new perspective or a certain outlook on something. It's stimulating and that has been really valuable in my life. And certain things that I offer too is like INFJs are kind of like the NTs of the NFs. So they have really strong thinking because their introverted thinking is pretty high up in their stack. And so they actually can offer level-headed advice, but also in a warm way. And so they're able to still have like the TI quality of being able to dissect the principles of the situation or break down something, but they do it in a way where you don't feel like you're being pierced by a scalpel or an arrow, and it's more gentle. You're being gently understood, but it's still it can have a very cerebral element to it as well. And so there's that. I think that when INFJs are themselves, they can be a little hard to track in conversation. So that's like one of the reasons why I've had to chameleonize. I've had to make my speech easy for people to understand because my natural way of articulating, it is articulate, but it can get so abstract that I've gotten feedback that people have trouble keeping track. So there's been a lot of shame around that. And so I purposefully dumbed down my speech. And so I do that because it's like this fear of, oh, great, people are going to misunderstand. So I'm just going to dumb this down. But when I'm around people who I can actually talk to about the things I'm interested in, and I can talk in my mother tongue, in the way that it was originally communicated, it's refreshing because it's like, wow, I've gotten so used to translating myself. I didn't know how it was like to talk in my mother tongue. And so I can talk in like an esoteric way sometimes, and I've learned to train myself out of it, but it feels unnatural. And so it's something that I want to learn to reclaim again. There is this desire to unpack the human psyche and society. And that's something that we bring to, is like getting people to think deeper into an issue, or like bringing something to them and they're like, I didn't think it could go down like that. I'm scared to talk about myself. This is like, I guess I have anxiety around making things about me. I'm
just
like,
pretend like we're not here.
Yeah, talking to myself. That's good. Look at Jamila doing she was talking about the Denzel and how she encourages Denzel to be true to his FI. And I'm like, yeah, Jamila's helping me be true to myself by encouraging me. It's like, yeah.
Hey, I'm not actually here anyway, so you don't have to pretend.
But yes, now that we've all shared our role in the relationships that we're a part of, I'm wondering, what is something that you really want to know about in relationship language and type language?
Well, I'll be curious about like if people's preferences have changed over time, right? In terms of, or like they met someone of a certain type and later on they met someone of another type, and how is that dynamic like? That'll be my question.
I would say for me, I don't know that I would say necessarily that my preferences have changed over time, but I feel like all of my like past people that I've been interested in, and then more specifically like relationships that I've had, they've all been like different. Like I only had kind of like 2 relationships before my husband. The first one, he was an INFP, and the second one, he was an ESTJ. And like I said, my husband's an ENFJ. So they all like offered different things. I wouldn't say that I necessarily, which I thought was interesting for you, Leon, you were saying like, oh, you know, kind of who you are dependent on, or not who you were, but like, I don't know. I feel like how you were explaining it was very like NEFI, like, oh, I'm in this, you know, new territory. So like I'm exploring this part of myself, or like this part of myself is more apparent when I'm in this environment or whatever. For me, like just looking back on my, like all of my relationships, I feel like I've pretty much maintained like the same, I don't know if I would say the same type of role, because it's kind of like what I feel like each relationship needs more, or like what the other person brings more or less out of me, but it didn't really feel different, if that makes sense. It's just like, oh, you know, with the INFP, we had like this deep, like FI thing going on all the time, like practically crying together all the time. And then like with the ESTJ, it was like, honestly, it was pretty fun. Like he was he was like more serious. That sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but he was more serious in the sense of like academically, like he was at the top of his class and like stuff like that. But like as a person, like he was fun to talk to and everything. And it was easy for us to just like talk and hang out. Like we had a really good like friendship, like friendship. So yeah, I feel like the types of people that I'm attracted to have been all kind of like different, and they've all highlighted different parts of myself. So yeah, I can't like look to be like, oh, you know, I kind of have this type, because I don't think that I do in that regard.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. That's I really liked your answer. And so I'm kind of curious. I'm going to amp up the NF aspect of my question and say, like, what do you feel like, just to anybody too, like, how do you feel like you have grown through your relationships, or you've just like what Jamila said, it's about like how different types have highlighted different aspects of yourself.
How I've grown through relationships, it was actually an INFP who got me into the cognitive functions, and he taught me the art of asking good questions, because he really got to know me, and like it wasn't just me superficially, but he really pried into my soul. And so that changed me, because it made me a person who wanted to ask better questions to people. Because when you have someone who is very thoughtful and a good listener, it changes you, because your needs feel like they've been met in a way that they've never been met before. And so it makes you want to be a better person. There are certain relationships and people that just bring out the best in you, and they make you want to be better. And you get addicted to that feeling too, of wanting to be a better person with someone. So there's that.
I just wanted to say that, like, I've already said a lot about my relationships, but I feel very blessed, because though the relationship was difficult in many ways with my INFP, like I learned a ton from him, and he learned a lot from me. And I think that if I hadn't had like a high FI person in my life, I probably would have, I don't want to say just been a robotic ESTJ, but it softened me. It changed the direction of my life in many ways. But in saying that, now I just feel blessed that I have something that feels more natural to me. So I feel like I've gotten the best of both worlds, to be honest. I feel very blessed, because my INFP ex-husband means the world to me. Absolutely 100%. Like he's a very good, admirable man, very respectable. My ISTP fiance is the same way. Like admirable, respectable, they're really good men. And so it's been nice to have both ends of the spectrum and see both of them, because I needed someone to soften me. I had a rough childhood, And when I turned 18, it was like full steam ahead. Like that's what I was going to do. And to do what I do today, where I have to listen to people all the time and really try to reach their soul, it took like learning from the INFP, to be honest, for 20 years. Like, I feel like my life was all planned out and it's just going according to plan. Mm-hmm. I mean, not my plan, but just the plan. Right.
Yeah, our lives have been eternally changed by INFPs. And so that's a little bit of an ego boost for your type, Leon.
Thank you. Maybe that was like a subtle manipulation on my part. Just kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So the INFP I talked about, I actually had a huge crush on him. And I think he never knew. I think he never assumed that. He just was like, wow, friendship. But yeah, when you meet someone who transforms your life, you never feel like you're the same person afterwards. They forever leave an imprint on you because there's something beautiful that they taught you, and you can't really forget beauty. Beauty is always remembered. I think what was so special about the bond that I had with the INFP was he was exploring my mind. So it wasn't just like a surface excavation. It was more of a mining really far into like why I do the things that I do. And it was like, wow, I never even knew those parts of me existed, and they were uncovered through good inquiry. And so you know that someone you love has changed you when you notice you start doing things differently because of them. Like the certain ways that I start to inquire into people, it's just me summoning this INFP that I have met before. And so there are certain techniques that you're like, wow, I would love to apply that in my life too. Because INFPs can make people feel so special sometimes just because they're so good at listening. And everyone else can be pretty bad at listening. So you can, like, people can go 50 years or 60 years of their lives just feeling not listened to. And like they meet an INFP, and the INFP actually listened and gave a shit about what they listened to too. You know that you love people because you start to adopt things that they spoke about, or you take what they said seriously. So this INFP was into numerology, or just he just dabbled in every typology system because like NE just likes to bounce around or taste things. And so like with everything that I do, I kind of use the handle with 22 at the end because he told me that was my lucky number in numerology. You still care about a person because you still hold certain things that they said to mean something in your life. And it carries on in you. So they have a legacy inside you. We're just touched by INFPs, Leon. End of story.
Does anybody else want to continue on this topic of INFPs in a positive sense? Just kidding. Yeah.
Listen, I'm with an INFP. I love it. It's the best relationship I've ever been in. INFPs are great. We talk about anything with them.
There you go. More praise, please.
No, I just realized, I'm like, oh yeah, Joyce and Wendy, talking it up about INFPs, but I'm like, oh wait, I had an INFP too. And it was great. Like I said, we had a very strong emotional kind of almost spiritual connection. But yeah, that was an interesting relationship, but in a good way for the most part.
I have one thing I've learned the most from other types is letting go. I've had to let them be themselves and just enjoy some of the time of my time with them, because if I spend too much time, I'm thinking mostly of ESFPs maybe that kind of they're just too active, for me sometimes. That I have to take them in sort of small doses, and then it's fine. I can enjoy that. But if like there's this one ESFJ I spend time with, ESFP, and she is just all over the place, so constantly active. And going on and on about what's happening right now, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it. I want the bottom line. That's all, please. And so letting go is really how I get along with everybody now. It just take them in small doses and then step away and move on, because I feel overwhelmed otherwise. You know, even I have a good friend who's an INTP, and he will corner me and tell me some crazy idea he's working on for 30 years and so forth. And it's like, it's interesting in small doses, but I've got to get away after a while because it doesn't interest me that much. It's his thing, not mine. So anyway, that's my survival mechanism is kind of letting go or stepping back, and still being myself.
I agree with that. That's kind of what I do now. Now, even if, you know, I can kind of surmise some people who I don't know their exact type, but to me, there's just a certain amount of freedom in not trying to change somebody and have them be something different, and saying, you know, what can I get? How can I learn from this person? You know, because if I believe that there is no absolute right type, it's an opportunity to just look and see how they're doing it.
My understanding of personalities like saved my children from Judge Judy, basically. Because my ESFP, he couldn't remember shoes when he would get in the car. And it was like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
But so I love the grace. That's what I love about understanding people and different types, is that you can extend grace when other people wouldn't extend it. And so that's the best gift that I feel like I can give, especially my type that tends to be pretty hard lined on everything. I definitely give out grace. But I have to say, as a side note, because I've wanted to say it, Jeff, I totally commend. Are you saying that you're a parent for the first time at, did you say 70? Am I right? Did I hear that right?
Well, yeah, I'm 74.
Oh, you're 74?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Can we come back on and ask him in 6 months how it is? Because I just want to say I commend you. Like it's I find that interesting. So I know we're tending to talk about romantic relationships, but you at 74 are gonna now experience a parental relationship. And so that's a whole different bag of tricks for sure. So,
well, it's interesting because my wife, who is an INTJ, is totally amazed at how I can calm him down so easily. And it's just, I study, you know, my TE is just, I study what works and I analyze it and I say, hey, this seems to work. And I do that. And I'm having fun with that. It's right. Kind of fun to do good, it's just, it's just fun.
Congratulations and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
I'm at the end of the marathon. My youngest is 16, so I'm at the end. But good for you at going out and grabbing everything you can from life, no matter what age you are.
I agree.
Heck yes. And so thanks everyone for coming out and discussing your type in relationships. I appreciate, Wendy, that you have such a strong sense of order, in that you really know how to plan and get stuff done. And you're really goal-oriented, down to you having a heat-seeking missile out for your INFP in 3rd grade. You're like, you will marry me, and you made it happen. That's intense.
And he did not like me. He kept a little journal. Like, he has the journal still from elementary school. And for whatever reason, back then, the little journals said, people you hate. They would never say them today, but it did back in like 1986 or whatever. And my name was number one. He hated me, but I got my way. No. No.
See, kids, with enough confidence and persistence, you can do anything.
I believe that too. So, yeah.
Well, he just wanted to be her, right? Really, right? He didn't really hate her, obviously.
Well, I think he did in the 3rd grade. It's just not by 17. He didn't hate me anymore by 17.
Well, right. He had his little juvenile reasons, but they got ironed out.
He probably found me annoying because in high school,
Probably.
that man would stand next to my locker every day, not saying a word. And I would go right up to him and say, hello, how are you doing? But just in his face for a whole year. A whole year.
Mm. I wonder if this is the dynamic when an extrovert tries to pursue an introvert real hardcore. And like my ENFP best friend, she was like, you will be my best friend the first day that she laid eyes on me. And I hated her. And she knew that I hated her. She still pursued it. And always like this close to my face. This couldn't breathe without
I love introverts. I love them. In my meetup groups, I love when the introverts come because I want them to feel safe. So they come feel safe with me. I love it though. They come to my groups and they were like, I was scared to come, but I decided to come and we go hiking up the mountains and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you deal really well with rejection. Like he said that he hated you, and you're like, "It's fine if you reject me. It's like me eventually."
Yeah.
You will learn to love me. No.
Very cool. And thanks, Ron, for coming on. You are a chill pill of a human being, and so is Jamila. Whenever I see ISPs, I'm like, wow, I just feel instantly like I just took chill medication, and now I'm feeling the chill by association, just being in the atmosphere of the chill. So you generate a lot of calm feelings for people, especially for the worried populace. you really calm them down. There is some like ISTP body language that Ron has. I noticed like when ISTPs agree with you or something, like they nod, but they also do this like slight frown with it as well too. Not in a like weird way, but it's like TI is still checking if it makes sense as they're agreeing with you. It's like, yeah, I think it makes sense, but it's like they take a while to fully agree with it. It's like I think I'm on board. And so thanks, Jamila, for coming on, even though it's dinner time and you have your Chick-fil-A, you chose to also spend time with us too, and I appreciate it. And yeah, the pranks that you pull on Denzel are hilarious. Wrestling. Wait, so who wins with wrestling?
Well, see, the thing is, he doesn't really fight back. And so it's more so me, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Is it aggravate? But it's really more so me trying to get him upset at me enough to like fight back. Not abusively, okay, but just to like get a reaction out of him. But he doesn't budge. But most of the time, he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just me hitting him and then him just being annoyed. And then it just stops.
And so, Jeff, it's really cool to hear about your new child and all of the new parenting things that you'll be going through too. And it's really exciting. Yeah, I'd love to hear updates too.
It's an adventure. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And like Jeff is probably doing 50 other things too, but he carved out time also to do this panel. So I appreciate it. And so he's like limousine business here, and then APT here, and then other thing here.
Yeah.
But you still you can juggle many plates.
Juggling.
Yeah. Whereas other people would just crash the plates after a while, you're able to still juggle them.
Yeah. Well, I'm drawn to do that. Yeah.
And even when you're doing that, you're still like, I could do more still. There's still more plates that I can juggle or spin. And yeah, thanks, Leon, for being an INFP. You know how much we all like INFPs here. We're just on your team. And you're a psychotherapist too. So you're right in the NF occupations. Keirsey's like, NF's like counseling, therapy. And you're like picturesque INFP career.
Yeah, that's true. I really do fit the mold, which upsets my expert intuition a lot.
It's like I want to be different.
It wants to be contrarian, but
you're just gonna try to be a firefighter.
I'll never get out of it because if I'm contrarian, I'm still being an INFP.
It's true. Wanting to be unique still makes you an INFP. And Kathleen, it's nice to know how you like to get people together. And you're a really social person. And you really do have that extroverted quality to you. It is very stereotypically extrovert to feel like going out is the preferred choice.
Yes.
Even during the pandemic, you're like, if I could, I would. That level of activity, engaging with the external world, focusing on the external world, interacting with the external world. All extroverted functions kind of have that in common with it.
Right.
Cool. And so shout out to the Association of Psychological Type. I'm just going to give them a little bit of
Thank you.
airtime.
Yeah, we have exciting things going on now. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have it linked below too.
Yeah, lots of opportunities to take courses and learn and workshops. It's great.
Yeah. And Spacey, it's interesting to have you on the Enneagram 9 boat too, and to hear about your drug life. I'm kidding, but I just like poking at you. But yeah, we're just all worshiping INFPs, so it's nice to have you add to the INFP worship train with us, Spacey. We just all want to tell Leon how much we love him.
Secretly, this is recruitment for a cult activity.
INFP cult.
Exactly.
Yeah, all in good fun, guys. All in good fun. The cult that worships good listening. You're just going to make us better people.
Oh, in return, we have there's a human sacrifice that goes on, but we only take about 5% of the people in the group.
That's why he's collecting us. And yeah, so thanks everyone.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joyce. It's fun.
Cool. Yeah. I'll have everyone's channels linked below. And so yeah, have a great day. Enjoy your night. And stay
Take care.
Take care.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Let's stay together. I'm so in love with you. Whatever you want to do is all right with me, 'cause you make me feel so brand new, and I wanna spend my life with you. Let me say that since, baby, since we've been together, loving you forever is all I need. Let me be the one you come running to. I'll never be untrue, baby. Let's stay together, loving you whether times are good or bad, happy or sad. Whether times are good or bad, happy or sad. Why people break up, turn around and make up, I just can't see. You never do that to me, would you, baby? 'Cause being around you is all I see, is what I want us to do. Let's let's stay together.